every nation on the face of the earth, and they have returned to the land that God promised them. Now, another fulfilled prophecy in the Bible is that Israel, when it comes back to the land, will blossom like the rose. When God warned Israel that disobedience would lead to exile, he also told them the land would be left desolate, and that's Ezekiel 6, one of the places is in Ezekiel 6:14. So I will stretch out my hand against them and make the land desolate. God warned Israel that their land would be left desolate. It would not support anyone. It would not grow anything. This is what Mark Twain wrote, actually, when he visited Israel. He said, "It is the most God-forsaken, desolate place in the world. Why anyone would want to live in the midst of such desolation is more than I can understand." But today Israel has become a thriving nation, one that would astonish Mark Twain. Now, according to the UN, Israel has the most productive soil in the world. Israel is a land of rich pastures. She is filled with orchards and vineyards. Israel actually ships fruit all around the world. Now, Europe has a population of nearly 500 million people, and it depends on fruits and vegetables from Israel all winter long. Israel ships flowers to Europe, including Holland, and then Holland reships those flowers all around the world. In Isaiah 35:1, God said, "The wilderness and the wasteland shall be glad for them, and the desert shall rejoice and blossom as the rose." In Isaiah 27:6 it says, "Israel shall blossom and bud and fill the face of the world with fruit." And those prophecies have literally been fulfilled in our lifetime. Now, in the 30s, the British said, "We cannot let any Jew go back to the land because the land cannot sustain them." Today, Israel's agricultural exports total $1 billion annually. God told us in Isaiah 66, verses 7 through 9, that when Israel would be reborn, she would be reborn in a day. And that passage says, "Before she was in labor, she gave birth. Before her pain came, she delivered a male child. Who has heard such a thing? Who has seen such a thing? Shall the earth be made to give birth in one day? Or shall a nation be born at once? For as soon as Zion was in labor, she gave birth to her children. Shall I bring to the time of birth, and not cause delivery, says the Lord? Shall I who cause delivery shut up the womb, says your God?" Now, one of the things that I find interesting here is that he says, before her pain came, she delivered a male child. And that's important because as soon as she was born, she was attacked. This happened after the nation of Israel was born, that her pain came. So, and we also see here that the question that God asks is, shall a nation be born at once? Shall a nation be born in a day? So here we see that as soon as Zion, Israel, was in labor, she gave birth. Israel became a nation on May 14 of 1948. She was literally born in a day. But from the verses in Isaiah, we can see that there would be those who would want to stop the birth. And the day after Israel was declared a nation, she was attacked by 5 Arab armies. So here we see again that her pain came after her delivery. So these armies invaded from the south, the east, and the north. Israel had 2 tanks, and she turned back 5 Arab armies, 5 Muslim armies, in one of the most miraculous wars of recent history. She fought a well-trained and a well-equipped enemy. Now, these Muslim armies, they swept in with planes, they had tanks, they had advanced weaponry, and they attacked Israel from every side, and they claimed that their goal was to kill every living Jew. Israel just fielded the battle with local farmers and anyone who could fight. They didn't have this vast military that they have today. But all they had was farmers and just anybody that they could get to fight, and of any age, anywhere from grandson to grandfather. But many who joined the fight just had small arms, and then there were others that had no weapons at all. And this is what stood against a superior foe and won. So not only did God tell Israel that she would be returned to the land in the last days, He also told her exactly what would happen when she returned to their land, and he also told her where she would be coming from. In Isaiah 43, verses 5 and 6, we read, "Fear not, for I am with you. I will bring your descendants from the east, and gather you from the west. I will say to the north, give them up, and to the south, do not keep them back. Bring my sons from afar, and my daughters from the ends of the earth." First, God tells the Jewish people that when they return, they will return from the east. And in the first half of the 1900s, the Jews began to return to Israel, and they came from the Middle East. They came from countries like Syria and Jordan, and they came from Yemen and Iraq. Now, after the Holocaust, the people began to return from the West. They were coming out of Europe. And in the 80s and in the 90s, over 1 million Jews came out of Russia, and they returned to the land of Israel. Then the Jews in the south began to make Aliyah, and they returned to the land of Israel out of Ethiopia. In fact, Israel sent more than a dozen jumbo jets into Ethiopia, and in just a few days they brought back some 20,000 Jews from the south. And this is the exact order of return: the east, the west, the north, and the south, that's prophesied in Isaiah, and is also prophesied by David in the book of Psalms. And this is exactly what God said would happen. The prophecies were literally fulfilled, and this shows us that God tells us what he will do before he does it, and the Bible says he does that so that we can know that he is God, so that we can know that this is God's word and that we can trust it. We need to listen to what God tells us in his word, because this is God's word. This is God. And there are hundreds of prophecies that have been fulfilled in the past, and they have been literally fulfilled. And we can know that the remaining prophecies, that they will also be fulfilled, and they will be fulfilled literally too, just as they were in the past. That's not going to change in the future. Now next, God tells us that when he brings Israel back to the land, that he will restore their language. In Zephaniah 3:9 we read, God says, "For then I will restore to the peoples a pure language, that they may call on the name of the Lord to serve him with one accord." And in another passage we read, "Thus says the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, they shall again use this speech in the land of Judah and in its cities when I bring back their captivity." And that's from Jeremiah 31, verse 23. Before the Jews returned to the land, Hebrew was a dead language, and except for Hebrew, no other language has ever been reborn, has been recovered. Today, all over Israel, the language spoken is Hebrew, so those prophecies were literally fulfilled. The next prophecy I'd like to look at can be found in Ezekiel 36:10 through 12, where it says, "I will multiply men upon you, all the house of Israel, all of it, and the cities shall be inhabited and the ruins rebuilt. I will multiply upon you man and beast, and they shall increase and bear young. I will make you inhabited as in former times, and do better for you than at your beginnings. Then you shall know that I am the Lord your God." Now in this prophecy, God tells us that the cities of Israel will once again be rebuilt and be inhabited. And we know from history that the cities of Israel were not inhabited for almost 2,000 years. So now, not only is Israel back in the land, but the cities are once again inhabited, and they're called by their old names. So after Israel rebelled against Rome, and Jerusalem and the temple were destroyed in 70 AD, Rome took control, and they renamed all of the cities. Now, after the Muslims conquered the area, they also renamed the cities, and they named them with Islamic names. And then the Turks, of course, did the same thing. Then the cities were abandoned, and they were left desolate, and Israel became a wasteland without cities. But today, almost all of the old cities have been rebuilt, and they are called by their old names, just as God said. And this verse also says, "I will make you inhabited as in former times, and do better for you than at your beginnings."